الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا اللهم بما علمتنا وزدنا اللهم علما وعملا إنك ولي ذلك والقادر عليه. أما بعد، هذا درسنا في شرح بلوغ المرام، وسنأخذ هذا الكتاب بدلا من كتاب السيرة، لأن هذا قد وصلنا إلى آخر باب وآخر باب الغسل، فأردنا أن نكمل هذا الباب قبل الدخول في رمضان إن شاء الله. وسنأخذ بقية هذا الباب، باب الغسل وحكم الجنب، ثم نأخذ ما يتيسر مما يتعلق باستقبال رمضان ونصائح وتوجيهات فيما يتعلق بذلك. وبالله التوفيق. So we wanted to say today, inshallah, because we're at the end of Bulugh al-Maram, we want to finish that today, inshallah, the chapter of ghusl, the chapter of bathing, so that we can finish this, and then after Ramadan, inshallah, we'll continue in the following chapter, which is chapter of tayammum in the book Bulugh al-Maram, so that we can complete that before Ramadan, inshallah. And then with time we have left, we'll talk, inshallah, a little bit about Ramadan. So we enter how to prepare ourselves mentally and physically for the month. Inshallah, we'll mention what is regarding that, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes easy for us. And we reached in the Bab al-Ghusl to the hadith 15 بعد المئة, حديث أم سلمة رضي الله عنها قالت قلت يا رسول الله إني امرأة أشد شعر رأسي، أي أشد ضفر شعر رأسي، أفأنقضه لغسل الجنابة؟ وفي رواية والحيضة. قال لا، إنما يكفيك أن تحثي على رأسك 3 حثيات. رواه مسلم. So far we took in the chapter of the ghusl all the major items we took, which is what requires us to take the bath. We mentioned, of course, janaba, a person being on major impurity, لرفع الحدث الأكبر, to raise the major impurity so one can pray, because on the major impurity, meaning he's in a major impurity, he cannot pray until he takes a bath. Okay. And number 2, we mentioned for the Jumu'ah, for Salat al-Jumu'ah, القول الراجح أنه واجب. There's difference of opinion, but the more stronger opinion we mentioned that it's wajib to take the ghusl on the day of Jumu'ah for the Jumu'ah prayer, meaning for the one who is, obligatory upon him to attend the Jumu'ah prayer. Okay. Number 3 is the new Muslim, or person who leaves disbelief to enter Islam, says the Shahadatain, then he is ordered and advised to take the bath. And then we mentioned the steps of the ghusl. As we all know, we took that last class, how to do it, either the wajib way or the sunnah way. The wajib is just to cover the whole body with water. Make the niyyah first, cover the whole body with water, including the mouth and the nose. We say the whole body means a person has to do this madmada wal istinshaq in the ghusl, even if he doesn't go through all the steps of the wudu in the shower or in the bath, he still has to do at least that. The sunnah way is to do, as we said, all the steps we discussed last time. And so this hadith we reached to now, hadith Salama, is regarding the woman, how there's specific rules concerning her hair when she takes the bath. So she said, O Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, I'm a woman who ties braids in my hair. Should I unwind these braids when I have to take a bath for janaba, and one narration for hayda? Janaba means the major sexual impurity. Okay, so the answer, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said no. For the regular in major impurity after having relation with your husband, he told her, you don't have to open the braids. Okay, the hadith is clear in that matter. Uh, the wording, one narration says, and what about the menses? You know, woman when she's pure from her menses, the period, 7 days or whatever, she's bleeding. Once she stops bleeding, she has to take a bath. Okay, as we know, before she can start praying. So she, what about that? Does she have to, after the menses is done, does she have to open her hair when she takes a bath and make sure that the hair is open and not in braids? There's a difference of opinion, but the correct opinion is yes. She has to open her braid when she wants to take a bath after the period, okay? Which is once a month, right? That bath is once a month, usually. But not when she has a relation with her husband, which could be every day, every other day, depending, right? In that case, she does not have to open her braid. So, what do you think? What do we think? The wisdom is in that. The wisdom, as scholars explain, because في مشقة على المرأة, it would be a difficulty for her if she has keeps braids to every day or every other day to open them, you know, to take a bath. But the menses, after bathing, after menses, only once a month. So there's no difficulty in that to undo the braid. Okay, that's one explanation. Okay, amongst many of the scholars. وقلنا لأن الأصل إيصال الماء إلى أصول البشرة، إلى أصول الشعر، إلى البشرة. Because why? Because the hadith we took last time, that the person has to make sure the water gets to the roots, okay, of the hair. So that's why for the male, you know, and generally we're supposed to, in female too, we're supposed to take the water and put it into the hair, right, to make sure it gets to the roots. And if there are braids in the way, then for example, for after the menses, then he will not be able to, or more difficult to get to the roots. So that's why it's to be done at least for the menses. Uh, وهذا كمثل أي هائل بين الماء والبشرة لا بد أن تزال. That's the same for anything that interferes from the water reaching the body part. We said before, if there's a person who has nail polish, a woman has nail polish, okay, that nail polish is preventing the water from reaching her nails. So that nail polish has to be removed. Otherwise, the wudu is not acceptable. Likewise, a man who has paint on him, you know, or something, or lots of thick oil on him, such that the water just washes right over and doesn't get into the skin, then he has to remove that thick substance before his wudu can be acceptable. So likewise, if the braids would be an obstacle, would be, you know, difficulty for her to reach the water to her skin. That's one explanation. Okay, but because there's mashaqqa, يعني there's a قاعدة المشقة تجلب التيسير. There's a principle that difficulty brings easiness. Okay, the difficulty, you know, one second, the difficulty in opening the braids every day for a woman, you know, for that case, there's an easiness has been legislated. يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر. Allah said Allah wants for you easiness. So in that case, if it's janaba for having relation with the husband, it could happen every day or so on. For that case, she does not have to open the braids as a like an excuse for her. For the tattoo, it you know, it's not allowed, of course, you know, but someone maybe it's not allowed to have tattoos, you know. But does it interfere with the wudu? You mean? No, it would not, because it's like it's a uh, now taken the color of the skin. It's not a layer on top of the skin. It's taken the form of the skin. Like henna. Henna is allowed, to have, and a woman can make wudu with the henna on with the color on the skin, because it's not a layer. It's actually taken the form of the skin. Allahu a'lam. So here, uh, so as far as the narration that says, the Salama, who said the authentic narration of Muslim, that she asked when she has janaba, which is after relation with the husband, does she have to open her braids? He said no. Okay. What the narration that says, what about when I have menses and I want to take a bath after menses? That wording, some scholars say, is weak. Okay. So that's why we got this understanding. We explained that the menses is different. The menses, the answer would be yes, you have to open your braids for the menses. The wording of the hadith in one narration says, no, you don't. After the period, you don't have to open the braids, but that's not correct. Okay, some scholars say that wording is weak. Also, based on another hadith, hadith Aisha. Hadith Aisha, قال لها النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم انقضي شعر رأسك واغتسلي. He told her when she had menses, Aisha, different from the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This hadith Salama, Aisha was asked, and he told her sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for the menses, open your braids. For the menses, she was asked, he said, open your braids and take a bath. So Aisha's hadith is about the menses, open the braids. Salama, the hadith we have in the book, is about the janaba, relation with the husband. He said, you don't have to open your braids, okay, because that would be difficult. So that's with regards to that hadith. So that's a benefit for the women. So he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you don't have to open the braids for the janaba. إنما يكفيك أن تحثي على رأسك ثلاث حثيات. It's sufficient that you pour on your head 3 times, just like the man we took before. Rub your hands when it comes to the hair. Rub your fingers with wet fingers into the roots, and pour on your head 3 buckets of water, or 3 times under the shower head, and that's done. Your head is done. Okay. And why is the head different? For the janaba, for the ghusl, than the wudu. Wudu, we don't have to do all that, right? Wudu, we just mas ras, just wipe. Very simple. Khafif. Why the janaba is thaqil with this detail of all this? Because al-janaba hadath akbar, wal-insan بدنه كله يتلذذ بالجنابة، فمن المطابق أن الغسل يشمل بدنه كله بخلاف الوضوء. الوضوء ما ليس كذلك. Why? Because the human being, when he has relation with his spouse, it's a total body, effect, okay, experience. So likewise, he should have to, the water should reach the whole body. As some narrations, as we said, under every hair. Those narrations are weak. It will come that there's janaba under every hair. That narration is weak, but the meaning is authentic. That yes, under every hair, meaning you have to get it all over your body. That's the ghusl, because the reason for the ghusl was the whole body experience. So it makes sense. Likewise, in that regard, the scholars mention why the one who has zina, who commits adultery whilst married, the muhsan, why do they have to? Why are they stoned? Okay, why couldn't you just the person who commits adultery? Why not just cut his neck with a sword? The punishment is to die, right? Why stoning? Why not, electric chair, or a bullet, or poison, or a sword, which other punishments can be? Why this? Why the zani al-muhsin, he has to be stoned? Scholars explain there's a wisdom. Allah al-Hakim, Allah is wise in all the legislation. There's a wisdom. So the scholars explain why, because the same reason. الحكمة من أن الزاني إذا كان محسنا يرجم بالحجارة لأجل أن يؤم جسده الألم كما أمته اللذة المحرمة. So that why the whole body should experience the stones. So the stones are not too big or not too small. They're medium sized so that the whole body, has to go through the pain, just as the whole body experienced the pleasure of the act which he did haram. So it fits. The punishment fits the crime. So that's why they explain, the wisdom behind that. Wallahu a'lam. That's one explanation. Uh, فيه أن الأحكام مناسبة جاءت مناسبة بإللها, that the rulings came in agreement or appropriate to the reasons for the rulings. Everything has a reason, and the reason has to be in line with the ruling. Okay, so that's the hadith which we said is at the end of this chapter, which is we'll mention it now. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن تحت كل شعرة جنابة فاغسل الشعر وأنقل البشر. ولكن هذا الحديث ضعفه البخاري والألباني رحمة الله على الجميع. This hadith is weak, right? That we said the author mentioned that it says under every hair is janaba or sexual state of impurity. So wash the hair and make sure that the water gets to the skin. The wording is weak, but the meaning is correct. Okay, the meaning is mentioned. The meaning is correct, and it based upon the actions of the sunnah of the ghusl. It does indeed get to the hair. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith we took, get to the under the hair to the skin. But the wording we might hear many times in the tahta kulli sha'ra janaba, underneath every hair is a janaba. That wording is not authentic. We cannot attribute it to the Prophet ﷺ that he said that, But the meaning makes sense according to other evidence. Okay, so finally there's one hadith before that hadith. السادس عشر بعد المئة, the one before the last hadith. عن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إني لا أحل المسجد لحائض ولا جنوب. وهذا الحديث ضعفه الشيخ الألباني رحمه الله في الإرواء. So the hadith, final hadith that we'll take in this chapter from Aisha radiallahu anha, she said the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, indeed I do not permit the masjid, to enter the masjid, the menstruating woman or the person in janaba, the junub, the one in major impurity from relations with the spouse or wet dream or the like. But the wording this hadith is weak, okay, according to Shaykh al-Albani. So we mentioned before, just to complete this meeting, this difference of opinion, as we said last time, about the junub or the ha'id, the man on major impurity before he takes a bath, and the menstruating woman. Can they enter the masjid or not? While they're in this state of, when we say state of impurity, we mean the hadith al-akbar, meaning that they are not allowed to pray. It doesn't mean they're impure, right? We cannot say that a mu'min najis, because the Prophet ﷺ said, the hadith Abu Hurairah, Inna al-mu'min la yanjus. The believer is never impure, okay? So he's not spiritually impure. Who is the one who's spiritually impure? The kafir. Allah said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إنما المشركون نجس فلا يقرب المسجد الحرام بعد عامهم هذا. Allah said the mushrikeen are najis, meaning spiritually, from shirk and kufr. Okay? So the believer, though, he has iman. Even if he doesn't have wudu, or he hasn't taken a bath yet from janaba, he's still spiritually pure. So therefore, the Prophet ﷺ said to Abu Huraira, when he was shy from him from being in janaba, he said, "In al mu'min la yanjus." The believer is never impure, so there's nothing to be shy about. Okay, uh, meaning that you're not. So the point is that can they, though, when they're in the state of janaba, a believer, can they enter the masjid or not? Okay, whether menses or major sexual impurity. This is a big difference of opinion, amongst the scholars. But just to clarify what I mentioned last time, the proof for those who say they cannot enter the masjid or touch the mushaf, okay, because or touch the mushaf, because the Prophet ﷺ said, "La yamassuhu illa tahir." The Prophet ﷺ said, "Should not touch the mushaf except the pure one, the tahir." But what does tahir mean here? Tahir means not kafir, according to the other scholars. Because mu'min la yanjus, right? A mu'min da'iman tahir, spiritually. So the mu'min can touch the mushaf, well, even if he doesn't have wudu or doesn't have ghusl, because he's still tahir. That's one opinion. Okay? The other proof that some scholars say, the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah An-Nisa, uh, Allah said, "Ya أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى." Because this we mentioned this ayah because it's related to this hadith. حتى وأنتم سكارى حتى تعلموا ما تقولون ولا جنبا إلا عابري سبيل. Allah said, "O you who believe, do not get close to the salah, to the prayer, whilst you are intoxicated." This is before the tahrim, the prohibition of alcohol. It came in steps, right? There was a period when the alcohol was allowed for the Muslims. But Allah said, if you are drunk, okay, intoxicated, do not get close to where? The salah. Okay? Until you know what you're coherent and you know what you're saying. Because the person who's intoxicated doesn't know what's coming out of his mouth. He could start praying and he's cursing himself and saying bad things. He doesn't understand. The prayer has to be the heart present. And the drunk person cannot be present in the prayer. حتى تعلموا ما تقولون ولا جنوبا. That's the point. Also, when you're in a state of janaba, what? Do not get close to the prayer. إلا عابر سبيل حتى تغتسلوا. Except as a passing through, literally. Okay, until you take a bath. But what does abiri sabil here mean? Ali radiallahu anh explained it, musafir. Meaning when you're abiri sabil can mean either passing by, the masjid is here, okay, and you pass by, okay, or it could mean when you're a traveler, okay. When you're a traveler, do not get close to the salah, okay. When you're junub, okay, I'm sorry, when you're a traveler and you are junub, okay, do not get close to the salah, except if you make tayammum until you find water. So this is the understanding of the ayah, that one tafsir of it, that when it says do not get close to the prayer, meaning when a person is traveling, okay, and he gets a wet dream or something, janab, and now he wants to go, and there's no water. There's no water. Because usually there's traveling, many times you don't find water. Allah said, don't pray. لا تقربوا الصلاة. Don't pray when you're in janab. Except if you make tayammum, okay, then you can pray. So the junub, he's still junub, right? He's still junub, but he can pray in the state of tayammum, dry ablution. That's what it means. Why we say that? Because other scholars say no, the ayah means لا تقربوا مواضع الصلاة. Do not get close to the places of prayer. Okay, that's where the proof is. While Allah said do not لا تقربوا, Allah said don't get close to the prayer, meaning don't pray. But some scholars say don't get close to the places of prayer, meaning the masajid, whilst you are drunk or when you're junub. You see, that's where their proof lies. When you're junub, they're saying don't get close to the places of prayer. But al-asl fi hamli al-fadh al-shara أنه يكون على حقيقة اللفظ لا على التقدير لا بتقدير أو محذوف مثلا مواضع الصلاة. Why we say no, that is not the correct opinion, like some scholars say. Why? Because that requires us to put a word saying it means it's missing but it's understood. What is Allah said? Do not get close to the prayer. They say no, it means don't get close to the places of prayer. The places of prayer is not mentioned in the ayah. Places. It says don't get close to the prayer. And there's a difference, right? I mean, don't pray. They say, no, don't come to the masjid. But the masjid is not the literal word in the ayah. This understanding. So the origin is we don't make an additional wording. We take the literal wording, which is prayer. Also, the first part of the ayah has to fit with the second part of the ayah. First part was what? Don't get close to the prayer whilst you're intoxicated, because you won't know what you're saying. Does that mean the prayer? Well, that means the masjid. When do we need to know what we're saying? Which one? When we're praying or when we enter the masjid? Which one we have to know when we're praying? That's the point. When we're praying, our heart has to be present. So that also fits with the understanding that the ayah is talking about prayer, nothing to do with masjid, nothing to do with masjid. So because that if the first part of the ayah means don't come to the prayer while you're intoxicated, then the second part wala junuban, continuation, don't get close to the prayer junuban illa abidi sabilin, unless you're a traveler, you don't have any water, then you make wudu, make a dry ablution, tayammum. Okay, that's fine, you can pray. Okay, so that's the understanding. So that's why the scholars, like some scholars say no, there's no prohibition. والأصل براءة الذمة والأصل في الأشياء الإباحة والحل. The origin in things, it's allowed. Everything is allowed from worship, or unless there's a text, unless there's a clear ayah or hadith that says no, don't come into the masjid. Okay, while you're janaba or menses, there's no such clear text. So what do we go back to? Everything's okay. There's no prohibition until there comes the text. So that's why the scholars have that opinion, just to explain why they have that opinion. But like we said, the safer, or you could say the one al-khuruj min al-khilaf awla, is better to remove oneself from the difference. So what is the thing to be? A person wants to be safe, you could say, or get out of the difference, is to take the opinion that you don't come to the masjid, okay? You don't touch the mushaf while you're in the menses or in janaba. This will be, no one will blame you. No one will blame you if you say just do that. And for janaba, it's easy. Just take a bath. Anyways, there's no reason to stay in janaba when a person can just take a bath, and then it's fine. Touch the mushaf, go to the masjid, no problem with any scholar, okay, or any understanding. So that's why that would be the you could say the safer opinion. But just to explain why some scholars say why they say and why there is that difference of opinion. So بهذا انتهينا من باب الغسل وحكم الجنب. So we finished that with this chapter from Bulugh al-Maram. Any questions on this today, what we took today, or anything from this chapter?
Yeah, what do we understand now? The person who has Janab menses or Janab, he still can come to the masjid, but not to pray.
Yes, because there's no hadith or ayah. When we understand this ayah in Surah An-Nisa is dealing with the one who is traveling. It said, ولا إلا ولا جنبا إلا عابر سبيل حتى تغتسلوا. عابر سبيل, then according to this understanding, does not mean passing from one side to the other. I mean, according to that, those scholars say no, it means the masjid, you cannot enter it while junub, except just to pass through one door to the next until you take a bath. But when you say that, doesn't mean that. It means abir sabil means traveler, don't pray literally, nothing to do with masjid. Don't pray while you're a traveler and you don't have water, unless you make tayammum. Unless you make tayammum, then you can pray. So that's the. So therefore, if you take that ayah out, then the scholar said there's nothing prohibiting the junub to come into the masjid. But it's something, like we said, there's no reason to, unless a person, for example, doesn't have water. We can't say it's haram, right?
Like this example of the ladies'
Yeah, menses, that's more the issue. Yeah, menses is the issue, really. Why we say this about the junub? Because you حكم ال حكم الحيض الحائض. It really, because we have to establish the junub ruling so that we can see what is the ruling of the menstruating woman, and make that as the same ruling as the junub, because they're both in hadith akbar, they're both in major impurity, meaning they cannot pray. So once we establish the junub, then we know the ruling of the haid, okay, the menstruating woman. So then, based upon this understanding, then the menstruating woman would have the same ruling, which she can come to the masjid. She can come to the masjid according to this understanding. But like we said, this is just min hayth al-ilm. We're just mentioning why the scholars have this opinion. But definitely, a person, should khuruj min al-khilaf awla, that a person goes out of the difference of opinion and say, okay, if I'm menstruating, I don't come to the masjid. I will not come to the masjid, because in this case, no one will blame me, right? And no scholar would say there's anything wrong. Well, and she's out of the difference of opinion, and that is we can say awla is better. But if somebody has this opinion, then we see why they have this opinion, that it's okay, to come to the masjid. That's what, based upon the evidences, these scholars say there's no prohibition for her. There's no text, Quran, Sunnah. وإذا ما نرجع إلى الأصل الأصل في الأشياء الإباحة والأصل براءة الذمة. The principle is, when there's no hadith or ayah, we go back to the origin. The origin is permission. We can pray anywhere in the earth. We don't have to be careful of anything except there's a text. We can wear whatever we want. You see. No one can say, for example, you can't wear this color. This color, for example, green. Someone said, green is too fancy. Okay, so men should not wear green. Okay, well, how can you say that? You have to have a proof. Quran or Sunnah. I don't have a proof, but it just looks too fancy. No, that's not enough, right? Red. There's a hadith for the men not allowed to wear pure red. There's a hadith about that. But to make something else, a person has to have proof. So anyway, that's what is regarding to that. Any other questions regarding this chapter of ghusl? Then when it comes to, we want to take a little bit, inshallah, regarding Ramadan. ولا شك أن الله سبحانه وتعالى يخلق ما يشاء ويختار. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses, He creates what He wills, and He chooses. And from His wisdom is that He legislated certain mawasim, certain seasons for us for our benefit. And from the best of that is Shahr Ramadan, the month of Ramadan. And this is a once a year opportunity for us. وهي أيام معدودة. It's only a few days, 29 or 30 days. So this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us opportunity to rectify ourselves, okay? To gain maghfirah, forgiveness for the sins. And this is from Allah's mannihi wa karamihi alayna. This is from His bounty and His favor upon us, that He gave us this opportunity. So we should come into this month ready and prepared from the first, and through the month we should increase in our diligence, in our endeavor to seek nearness to Allah and to gain Allah's mercy. This is all for our benefit. Allah yatafaddal alayna وإلا فهو غني عنا. We don't benefit Allah with our worship, but it's all for our benefit. So, uh, from the benefits from this month, كما قلنا المغفرة. Allah said, من صام, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whoever fasts Ramadan out of faith and seeking, expecting his reward, then his sins are forgiven. Then his sins are forgiven. Regardless, the scholars say this means his minor sins, but still, that is a great benefit. When it says the sins are forgiven, does it mean the major sins too, or the minor sins? Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, many scholars say no, it's the minor sins, but we have a lot of minor sins. يعني كل ابن آدم خطاء وخير الخطائين التوابون. We have a lot of minor sins. So this is an opportunity for us to have cleanse ourselves from these sins. Major sin, like what do you mean? Major sin like zina, or yadhan billah, or sariqa, or stealing, or adultery, or steal, or things like that, or murder. These require tawbah, or sincere repentance with the conditions. So it's not just a person can come to Ramadan and say fasting and he's stolen something or he's committed zina and he still does not feel bad about that act. He doesn't feel sad that he did something terrible, and he has no resolve to stop doing that, and he plans to do it again, bi'adhan billah, or something like that. Then that sin is not forgiven by just fasting Ramadan. Also, uququl walidain, disobeying the parents, disrespecting the parents. هذا من أكبر الكبائر, major sins. So a person can't say I fast Ramadan and I can continue just being bad to my parents and I'm forgiven. It doesn't work that way. This is a major sin. الكبيرة تفتقر إلى توبة نصوح. ومن شروط التوبة الندم عما فات والعزم ألا يعود والإقلاع عن الذنب ورد الحقائق إلى أهلها. From the conditions of tawbah for the major sin is that a person feels bad. I feel very bad for what I did. I feel like I missed something, like I lost a part of my body. It's so bad I feel for what I did. So. Number two, that he stops doing that sin. If he was bad to his parents, he stops being bad to his parents. And then he promises sincerely to Allah that he won't go back to that sin. Okay? These are the conditions. And if it involves stealing a property or from some person or hitting someone, he has to give back that right to the person he abused. Give back that money from the right of the human being. But anyway, the point is that Ramadan will forgive the minor sins, but not the major sins, as long as we do it out of faith, belief in Allah, and expecting his reward. And additionally, a person has to refrain from the prohibitions in the month to get the full reward. إن جاء في الحديث أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من لم يدع قول الزور والعمل به والجهل فليس لله حاجة من أن يدع طعامه وشرابه. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever does not stop the bad speech, meaning lying or false testimony or bad speech, bad statements, and actions, bad actions, could be any kind of haram actions with the eyes, looking at haram, listening to haram, touching haram, backbiting, namima, lying, all kinds, cheating in the dealings. Person's a businessman, he's cheating people, and Ramadan he continues to cheat people. Okay. Then Allah said, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah does not have any need for him to leave his food and drink, because that's not the point. The point is not just to stop eating and drinking. The point is madrasa. It's a training that we should leave the haram. Okay? Those things, haram statements, haram action. Because if a person is behaving badly in Ramadan and he's fasting, he's not eating or drinking, then he's just getting hungry and thirsty. Another hadith, Prophet ﷺ said, رُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ حَظٌّ مِّن صِيَامِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعُ وَالْعَطَشُ. That perhaps a fasting person, he gets nothing from his fast except hunger and thirst, because he's doing all kinds of wrong things. You know, the only thing he's doing is not putting anything in his stomach, right? He's just getting hungry, and he's getting thirsty, and he's away from his wife, but that's it. That's all he gets. Just torturing himself in this fashion, but he doesn't get the reward, which is forgiveness of the sins. Forgiveness of the sins has to be with a change in one's outlook. You know, a person, yani, as a narration from the Sahabi, he said, was لا يكون يوم صومك ويوم فطرك سواء. لا تجعل يوم فطرك ويوم صومك سواء. Is a hadith narration, I'm sorry, author from Jabir radiallahu anh. Jabir radiallahu anh said, your day of fasting should not be the same as your day of not fasting. When we're in the fasting condition, especially in the blessed month of Ramadan, we should be different, you know, more careful from doing haram, because we know and we believe that if we do more haram we do in this month, bad dealings and speech and all, it decreases from the reward of the fasting. That's the point. That's the meaning of these hadith we mentioned. He's just getting hungry and thirsty. He's not getting the reward. The fasting counts, meaning he did complete the pillar. But he will be like a person who prayed, for example, and the whole prayer he's thinking about his food or dinner, okay, or thinking about business, you know, the whole prayer. And he from takbir to taslim, he has no idea what the imam read. He has no idea what prayer it is, but all he knows is takbir taslim. What does he get from the prayer? I mean, we say you don't have to pray again. It counted. Yeah, right? You fulfilled the fard upon you. But all the benefits of the prayer, he lost it, right? Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Allah said the prayer forbids evil speech and evil action. Fahsha, you know, all the adultery and looking at haram and so on. Okay? And the munkar, all kinds of sins. Which prayer? The prayer that we just said, the guy who just said, Allahu Akbar, and then he's gone, a different world, and then taslim, he's back. No, he's not going to get that. No, he's not going to get the nahi al-fahsha'i wa munkar. He's not going to get that benefit that this prayer is going to come to keep him away from disobeying Allah. That's why sometimes you see a person in the first row, you know, and every day, you know, and he's praying on time for the first row, you know, in the front, top beginning of the time of prayer. But after the prayer, he goes back to routine, you know, and there's no change. The prayer had no impact on his life. He goes back to the same haram he was doing. This means that this prayer didn't get in the benefit. You know, same thing when you come to fasting, Ramadan. To get the real benefit, a person has to be conscious in the fasting that Allah's watching me. But more so, I'm more conscious because if I slip up now, then I lose the reward, which is forgiveness of sins. Okay, which is promised by Allah in the hadith. Also, a very great benefit that goes along with this, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Allah said, fasting has been prescribed on you as it was prescribed upon those before you, or who you believe. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you would achieve piety. Piety is what? Taqwa is what? يعني فعل الأوامر وترك النواهي. Doing the obligations, staying away from prohibitions. So it means that a person, after he fasts this month, he should be more feeling closer to Allah and more in a pious state because he's trained himself this month. That's the benefit. Meaning, the benefit, لَعَلَّكُمْ, means after you fast this month, you'll have less desire to do haram, and further from that, and more upon your obligations. That's taqwa. Why? When a person goes through this month with his heart present in this manner. Ramadan madrasa. That's why the scholars say Ramadan is a is a school. We come into the school, you know, if it's a good school, okay, and then we finish the school, we should be a different person, right? We go through, take a course, a good course, we should be different. We should have some knowledge and some change in our life. And likewise in Ramadan. فيصير حاله من سيء إلى حسن أو من حسن إلى أحسن. What is the change? If he is a bad doer, then after Ramadan, if he does it properly, he becomes a good doer. And if he's a good doer and he goes through Ramadan, he becomes better. And so on. With each passing Ramadan, he should be better. خيركم من طال عمره وحسن عمله. As in the hadith, the best of you are those who get older. As they get older and older, they get better and better. More Ramadans he has, and more of these trainings, more schools, more courses, he's getting better and better. Why? As he gets older. وشركم من طال عمره وساء عمله. The worst of you are those who get older and they get worse. You know, that's the opposite of what should be. So as we get older, we should become more mature. And of course, the tawfiq min Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is all from Allah. Allah puts the blessing, you know, in this month. And he allowed all these legislations for us. So in the end, the bounties from Allah. يعني رد النعم إلى منعمها. We have to return the favor to Allah. Alhamdulillah. It's not us, right? Allah gave this for us. Wallahi lawla Allah. The Sahaba said, Wallahi lawla Allah. Mahtadayna wa ma sumna wa ma sallayna. The Sahaba used to say, by Allah. If not for Allah, we would never have been guided, right? We would never have been guided. The Sahaba were at their necks, at each other's necks. You know, some of them burying the dead, burying the live daughters, yadam billah, doing all kinds of worst of that shirk. But they said, by Allah, if not for Allah, we would never have been guided. Allah is the one who favored us. We would never have fasted, except that Allah guided us. And we would not have prayed. Okay? Allah said, وَكَذَلِكَ كُنْتُم مِّن قَبْلِ فَمَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمْ فَتَبَيَّنُوا. Allah said, and likewise, when we see someone who is misguided, we should say, likewise, we were misguided. فَمَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا. Then Allah favored us with the guidance. Okay? So we should, always remember Allah's favor. So therefore, finally, in this short time, we can mention another benefit from the fasting. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Allah says, Surah Al-Baqarah. Also in the same page, Allah said, وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةَ وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Allah said, so that you will complete the month, and then you praise Allah upon His guiding you, and then so you give thanks. So Allah said in the same page, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. So another benefit is that after this month, we should be more grateful. We should be more grateful. And we can see this on a daily basis, because a person كما قيل لا يقدر قدر النعمة إلا عند فقدانه وفقدانها إلا إذا سلبت منه. Like the scholars explained, that a person does not feel or does not recognize the value of the blessing until he loses it, right? Until it is taken away from him. So likewise, food and drink. We eat on a daily basis, so sometimes we take it for granted because it's always available. Anytime we can open the fridge, we can go to the restaurant, we can do anytime. It's at our fingertips. So we don't recognize how great a favor it is, the food and the drink, and they see it in Allah, the easiness. But when do we recognize and we start to really appreciate it more? When we have to taste the hunger and the thirst. When we get hungry, then we give more thanks. So that's what Allah said, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that we give thanks. And also we feel for those who don't have this blessing regularly, those who are starving, from the Muslims, poor, we feel for them because we are going through what they're going through on a regular basis. So لعلكم تشكرون, so that you give thanks. So these are some of the wisdoms and the benefits. Also, inshallah, we'll just mention one more since the time is short. That a person also في الصوم حمية عن كثرة الفضلات والرطوبات في البدن. Also in it is a physical benefit or also spiritual benefit. That a person leaves the extras. We have extra in our daily life. We have too much food, some of us, too much sleep, too much talk, right? But the blessing of Ramadan is that we train to minimize the extra, okay? Because the extras can harm the body, as is known, medically or physically, that a person has too much, whether it be fat or too much water, or too much sugar, or too much this, or too much in his body, that needs to be expelled from him. And the fasting has that benefit because he becomes a little bit low in his fluids and sugar and so on, and this is good for him. And also, regarding to too much talk in Ramadan, this is the time where there's a lot of worships that come into play. We're supposed to read Quran more in Ramadan. So with this time reading Quran, there's less time for foolish talk, qil wal qal, foolish talk, or too much excessive joking and laughing and so on. There's no time, So it's a good thing. That's the benefit of the going through this school. And also Taraweeh, we have things that we're doing, helping the poor, feeding the poor, and so on. These are all things that take our time, all right, and eliminate the excess, the wastage that we do in our talking. And the sleep too. When we have Taraweeh, we have wake up for suhoor, we see that we don't need so much sleep. We don't need that much sleep that we got accustomed to. So body gets trained. After a few days, inshallah, bifadlillah, a person starts to have a whole different routine in the month of Ramadan. And because this is from Allah's blessing and His tawfiq, وإن شاء الله نكتفي بهذا القدر وبالله التوفيق. نسأل الله تعالى أن يوفقنا جميعا لما يحب ويرضى. اللهم تقبل منا الأعمال الصالحة صل اللهم وسلم وبارك وأنعم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Any questions on that? Inshallah, maybe we'll do something during the month. Of course, not during this time, because this is the time we'll be, eating the iftar. But we'll see, inshallah, what we can do at some period, because it's good to revise the ahkam and certain things of the fasting, and so that we are upon basira, upon knowledge, upon these things. We know these things, but it's just a refresher. وذكر فإن الذكرى تنفع المؤمنين وجزاكم الله خيرا أجمعين وبارك الله فيكم.